Hi, Praveen.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for joining. So, thank
Yeah,
you all
thank
for
you.
joining. We have with us Mr. Praveen Kumar. So, he will just walk you through the webinar session on the topic how to get started with programming. So, about Praveen, Praveen is a former software engineer with Zoho Corporation. So, he is associated with Google for mentoring, and he also does a couple of freelance works as well. So, over to you, Praveen. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Yogesh. So I think we have quite a few participants. So I think we know our crowd already. So I guess most of you guys have tried to start programming on all these 30 days, which have been stuck in our home. And I want to give you guys a general idea of how to start with programming and how to take it forward. So this session would be like particularly suited for people or cater to the audience where you guys are really interested in getting into programming but are stuck in the entry level itself. So let's see on how to get into programming and very well started and go with it. So the first thing to start about programming is uh, everybody needs to start at one particular language. That's what I will tell you first. So before getting into that, I would like to request you all something. So the thing is, I have opened up my chat box. So whenever someone has any question to ask, just put it there in the chat box so that I can know. So so that we can I can answer your questions every now and then because this session is mostly for guys who have questions, a lot of questions, right? So you have questions on how to get started. I'm stuck here. I'm stuck there. So I want to answer your questions. So whenever you have a question about a topic which I'm trying to tell you, post a question in the group so that I can see it and answer you guys. Okay. So just put up a if you get the audio clearly, just put up a thumbs up in the chat bar so that we can know everybody is available. So, getting into the topic, you have to start somewhere. That is the first and foremost important thing. I would say the first important thing is starting at one particular language. I would recommend two languages. It can either be C or Python. The thing I would recommend about C or Python, why I'm recommending this is because uh, the the reason why I'm recommending C is because C has a general idea of the basics can be learned very well. Say for example, you don't have the privilege of using a lot of inbuilt library functions when it comes to C. So whatever you are trying to do, you have to do it on your own. So imagine C like riding your own bicycle. So at first it could be tough because learning a bicycle could break your knees, break your elbows, but it is always worth a while so that once you learn the balance of it, you can learn any other thing you want to learn in the future. It is the same balance. When it comes to motorcycle, it is the same balance, right? So I would say C as a cycle and other programming languages as a motorcycle. Say for example Python or Java or any programming language you take for instance. So learning in C will give you a great advantage over others who haven't learned it. But as most of the people are not interested in learning C because people are telling it isn't as good as any other languages, I would also recommend Python also. Python has this quality of making programming language look simpler. So making programming language look simpler and making it easy to code is one of the benefits about Python. So to start off with, I would ask you to guys to take notes if you want to. So to start off with, first important thing is to starting with any one language. I would recommend C or Python. Okay. So once you start a programming language, the thing about programming language is that it is uh, any programming language is similar to other languages also. I would like to compare this with any language which you have already learned. Let's take for example, people in the crowd maybe from Tamil or Tamil Nadu or other states, right? So take for example a word
Excuse
water.
me.
So the word water uh, could mean Tanni in Tamil, uh, and Pani in Hindi, or something else in other language, right? So, but the word and the object is the same. It isn't different at any language. The word it represents differs, but the object never changes. So that is how I see programming languages. Okay, so whenever it comes
Hello.
to programming language, okay, so whenever it comes to programming language, it would be like you would be learning the same thing in every programming language. So the data types, or your say for example your loops, your objects, everything is similar, everything is the same when it comes to any other programming language. Only the syntax changes, only the way you write it changes, nothing else. The concept remains the same. Maybe a few additional advanced concepts get added up to another programming language, or the way or the place where it is gets coded changes, but never the concept. The concept remains the same. So whenever you learn one particular programming language, it is always easier for you to learn multiple programming languages later. So that is how I would say. So start with one programming language first. Don't get into the idea that learning multiple programming languages is the only way to be a good programmer. No, it is not the case. Okay, so start with one programming language. Stick with the basics. So that is the first advice I would. First, I wouldn't say advice. It is the basic way to start off a programming. Okay, so that's the first important thing. Start with one language, stick with the basics. Once you stick with the basics, it is always easier, and you will always understand other programming languages also, and you can relate to it. So I saw this in this particular.
Nada, muchacho.
Hey, hi. Sorry to interrupt. Seems like the voice of the host is muted. Can you please unmute the because we can't hear we can't understand what you are trying to say.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's proper. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Sorry, when I changed to the switch to the thing, it got unmuted. Okay, so now it's clear, right, for everyone? Okay. So if you take this particular example, uh, so if you take this particular example, in this, there are three different types of ways you can create the three different types of languages in which you have created. This is C, this this is C, and this is Kotlin or JS. Uh, this is how you do it in Python. So in any of these languages, they never all the concept remains the same. The object remains the same, right? So you create a variable in a way that you're creating a 2 bytes of memory for an integer variable, but it never changes the way that it is represented. Okay, just the syntax changes, but never the concept of it, right? So once you start a programming language, it is like this. So that's the first thing you need to remember. And the next thing, when it comes across programming language, the most of the things everybody gets troubled is that learning the concepts of it. So logical logical thinking logical thinking, this is the second important thing when it comes to programming language. So it isn't about max. Okay, I want to make this clear about if not max. It is not at all max. Okay, so it is simple logic. Okay, so what would you do? I'll tell you a simple example. What would you do if you go, it isn't possible right now, but if you go to a movie theater and you want to go and watch a movie, so you go and ask for a ticket, but if the ticket isn't available, what you do is you ask for a movie ticket for some other movie, right? So if it isn't available, you ask for some other movie. If you don't like any of the movie, you come back home. It is a simple concept which you do deal with everyday day-to-day life, right? So, but this is the same concept which involves in the simple concept of if loop. Okay. Say for example, I write something like this. If, say for example, this movie one is available. Movie one equal to true. I watch this movie. Else, else in Python. Okay. In Python, it is like this. If movie two is available, true, you watch movie two. If not none of it, if you don't like any of the movie, you go home, right? So this is how your simple if loop will look like if you try to create your own uh, program for going and buying a ticket in your movie theater, right? So when it comes to programming language, it has an unfair advantage that any other education any other thing which you learn doesn't have. So take for example your max you learned, or your physics, or your any other chemistry things which you have learned so far in your entire life. Can any of you tell me that you have an you know where you have used it in your real life? I have still now haven't used any of my Pythagorean theorem or Euler's algorithm or anything in my real life today. I'm 25 and I haven't used it anywhere. But when it comes to programming languages, while you learn it itself, you can understand that it can be used in your own day-to-day life. It's it's part of your own way you represent yourself. So so whenever it comes to programming languages, it is not math, it's simple logic. So that is what you need to understand. So math isn't very tough. Okay, so the third math is tough, logic isn't. Okay, so the third important thing which I want to tell you is about, okay, I can understand syntax, but I can't be able to code on my own. Okay, this particular question is because say for example you guys have a problem. Okay, let's say you have a problem but you can't solve it. That's what you're trying to say, right? So I would suggest that say for example you have a problem where find the greatest of three numbers. Let's take a simple program, right? So what would you do if you want to find the greatest of three numbers? So it would be like you would ask the question. Say for example, I posed you a question that tell me which is the greatest of three numbers. Say for example, 5, 25, 3. Which is the greatest number of these three? So your answer would be like 25, right? So what had happened when I posed that question is what your brain immediately calculated that 5 isn't greater. You compared 5 and 25 when I gave you the first two numbers. You immediately made sure that 5 isn't greater, so 25 was the greater. So you kept 25 as the greatest number. Then I posted the third variable as 3. You compared 25 again with 3, and then you made sure 25 is again still the greatest, and then you told 25 is the greatest number. That's how your brain functions, right? So that is how your system also works. You can't expect the system to do all the work for you. It is like feeding a baby or teaching a baby. Okay, you have to teach it in step by step. So what you do is you compare A with B, and you ask if A is greater than C also. So you ask if 5 is greater than 25 and 3. So if 5 is greater than 25 and 3, you say A is greater. Okay. Then the next thing would be like if B is greater than C. So just because now if this isn't true, if the first statement, if this first statement is not true, only if it is not true, the statement will come to here, right? This particular case. So you for sure know that A is not the greatest of the three numbers, right? So if A was greater than B and C, this particular statement would have got printed in the if loop. Say it is given inside an if statement. Okay, I'm just writing the pseudocode. So writing a pseudocode will always help you. Okay, you don't need to write your own code at the first itself. You don't need to get into the syntax at all. Write a pseudocode on how the logic should look like. So this is a simple example of how a pseudocode should look like. Okay, so if A is greater than B and A is greater than C, what you do is say A is greater. If it doesn't work, if that particular case doesn't work, then you come to the next step saying check whether B is greater than C. It is you are doing this because you know for a fact that A is not greater than B and C. So now you can check if B is greater than C. So sorry, yes. Okay. So what happens is this was the simple syntax or logical mistakes you can do. The simple change of signs can cause you a logical error, but it can all be solved once an error is thrown. Errors are like your friends. You say that you can't code on your own. Code whatever you can. The system will prompt you whatever you are doing wrong. It will try to tell you that if there is any syntax error, it will tell you where you have made a mistake. If there is a logical error, you will face a runtime problem when you try to give in inputs. So give as many inputs as possible for any given program. Try to give as many inputs as possible. So when you give number of inputs, it will try to tell you where you might have gone wrong. The edge case scenarios will get covered when you give a lot of inputs. So when this particular case comes, you can say that if this case passes, you can say that B is greater. But both of the cases fails, you know for a fact sure that C is greater than all three of the variables, right? So this is so to answer your question, start with pseudocode. Start with pseudocode. So starting with pseudocode will give you a great idea on how your code should look like. Okay, so giving your you don't need to exactly go open your laptops and start coding right away. Open your notebooks, start writing it on. Step 1, I want this to happen. Step 2, I want this to happen. So if these two happen, I want this to happen. If this doesn't happen, make sure this happens. Write it in your own way. The pseudocode doesn't have any rules. Pseudocode doesn't need to have any rules. So feel free to write however you like. It doesn't matter. It is just an idea to give you that how your code should look like. Everybody does it. Over a period, you might not want it. Okay. Okay. How long will it take for you to learn one particular programming language? It depends, man. It doesn't matter how long will it take. You need to understand that covering the basics is the first thing you need to understand. Some might cover it in 5 months or 6 months. Some might do it in 3 months. If you're starting fresh, it may take 6 months. If you're already familiar with one programming language, you are trying to learn another programming language. It is very easy. You can just do it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Okay. Yeah, it depends on your own personal caliber. So it doesn't depend on any one particular if there isn't any standard which is said that you can cover it in 6 months, you can cover it in 3 months, you can cover it in 4 weeks. No, it isn't like that. It entirely depends on one's personal caliber. That's all. Okay, so that is what I would try to say to you guys. So the next thing I would say is, so the next important thing I would say is errors. So errors have always been a trouble to everyone who has started programming, right? So errors have always been a trouble to everyone who has started programming. So I would say errors are like you have heard it like 1,000 times that errors are your like friends, right? So I'll give you an example. Say for example, you have a friend who goes behind your back and talks to you, right? So you hate it, right? You literally hate it. You did something wrong, but you want your friend to say it right to your face. You don't want him to go behind your back and say it to someone else. So that's what error does. So it doesn't go behind your back and screw you up. It doesn't do that. What it does is it goes right in front of your face and tells you that you have did this particular mistake. You have, say for example, line 9, 15, you made a mistake. So which means that, and what mistake is it? It is a syntax error, um or math error or any type of error. Okay, so it says in which line number, in which position you made a mistake. So what else do you want? You error is like your own, say for example, a cheat. Whenever you go to an example, you take bits, right? So so it is like that. So it just tells you where you made a mistake. It doesn't, it is like your own cheat sheet. It tells you in this line number, this particular position, you made this mistake. So you can go on, change it. So I would recommend uh, go online, go online, go online and find your errors. Okay, it tells you what type of error it is. Google it. Google it. Just simply Google it. Okay. So Google it and find out what type of error it is and how to fix it. All know. Simple as that. So I would recommend a simple website called, every programmer has used this website. Okay. I would, I can bet on every money I have ever earned saying that this particular website has been used by every programmer there is. Okay. So whenever a programmer is stuck, so whenever a programmer is stuck, so whenever a programmer is stuck, use, just a minute, guys. So start with pseudocode. To cover it all, I just saw that I have been messaging to one particular person all the time. I haven't changed it to everyone. Sorry, guys. To restate everything which I have just said, so start with one programming language. Make sure that you are sticking with the basics. So once you stick with the basics, it is always easy to learn another language. The next thing is start with a pseudocode. Okay, pseudocode will help you a lot. So pseudocode doesn't need to have any rules. Okay, so this is the first thing you need to remember. Okay, start with pseudocode. You don't have to open your laptop right away. The second thing is it gives you an idea on how your code should look like. Okay, so I'll get back to that question. Okay, so the next thing is uh, the next important thing is use Stack Overflow. Whenever you're hitting a problem, whenever there's an error, okay, an error tells you which line or which program, which phrase you have made a mistake and what type of error you have made. go to Stack Overflow or go any other online website you find it easy. Check on what error, what mistake have you made, and then fix it. Simple as that. You always have a liberty to go back and fix it. Okay. So these are the first important things you need to remember about starting a programming language. You don't need to initially go and right away start a programming language. Okay. These are the simple steps you need to follow. Okay. These are the first initial steps. So this guy again asked the question that I am in Cognizant right now. How to get a job in a product-based company? Okay, to get a job in a product-based company involves simple steps. Um, good in great in at least one programming language, data structures. Okay, so these are the three essential keys you need to remember to get into a product-based company. So guys, I want this to happen. Okay, whenever you have a question, just post the question in the group so that I can answer it to everyone. Okay, everybody might have the same question. Okay, getting into a product-based company is a question that everybody asks. Okay, so whenever you have a question, just post it in the group so that everyone can hear the answer. Okay, so to answer the question to how to get into a product-based company is that remember three important rules. You have to be good at one programming language at least. You have to be completely good. You need to know what it is and how to do it in every case you are given. Any problem you are given, you need to be able to answer it or you need to be able to code it in it. Okay. You need to remember your syntaxes by heart. So you don't need to refer online to check what syntax you have to use to find a stuff. Say for example, substring of a particular given string. So you don't need to know. You shouldn't have to go to online to check it. You need to know it on your own. So remember that you have to be good at one programming language at least. The second thing is data sectors. Data sectors is must, like must. You need to understand that data sectors is the gateway path to your product-based company. You need to clearly understand. So data sectors is more than that. So once you understand data sectors, it gives you an idea on how you should navigate through programs. So how at the core a program works. Okay, so that's what I would say when it comes to data structures. Okay, so data structures will give you an idea on how a programming language should be constructed. Okay, so so these are the basic things and algorithms. So algorithm will be like an idea on the data structures you have, the data structures will give you on how to format it. So algorithm will give you an idea on how to make it efficient enough. So the structure should be efficient enough, right? So you can build a building in any format you want. So building it in the right way is must, right? So algorithm gives you an idea on how to build a program efficiently. Okay, so that is what is important. Okay. The other thing is, what about this guy asked a question that what about DBMS and SQL? So DBMS and SQL will be like, yeah, you need to understand that you will end of the day you will have to know DBMS and SQL. So it can be SQL or Oracle or MongoDB. It doesn't matter. Okay, it is just a idea that it's a DBMS concept. Okay, so the concept of learning a DBMS is must. Okay, it is still a way of storing data, right? But a general idea would be enough. You can learn it on the go, but these three are very important. Okay, so nobody you can learn it anytime you want later also. You can go in depth and learn, say for example, right, you don't know about right join or left join, so you don't know about what is data mirroring, so you don't know, you don't understand how to construct a query in a way that both right join, left join and inner join would be in the same query itself. So you don't need to know that right away, but you need to understand that you need to know how to create a table or select a table and get the data, data out of the table. So understand these simple concepts of data structure, data DBMS. You don't need to go right away into the advanced concepts. Okay, so learn it whenever it's necessary. But these three are like, say for example, getting your ID card to get into your company. So it is must. You need to know it. Okay. So that's what I would say when it comes to DBMS. You need to learn it. It is must, but you don't need to do it right away. Okay. You can take it slow when it comes to DBMS. Learn the basics. That is must. Okay. I'm not saying that is not. That is must. But learning advanced concepts, not right away. You can learn slower. Okay. Is it possible we can build projects only using programming and data success? No, it is not like that. You can take GUI for example. There are, if you go to GUI site, there are leaderboards where you can go and start coding. Okay, there is something called code kata. Okay, where there are data sector related problems posed. So what happens is there are concepts. Okay, in data sector there are concepts like you have already heard of it: list, query, queues, tag, trees, graphs. There are many things available. Okay, each data sector has its own subcategories: circular linked list, doubly linked list, single tree, binary tree, red black tree, graphs, different types of graphs. So there are different data structures available for you. So you need to understand every one of it. You need to understand where and why you use every particular data structure. So once you understand all that, you'll know where you have to use it in your programming. Okay. So it doesn't essentially mean that you can only build projects. Okay. You can also solve problems using your own data structures. Okay. So using data structures helps you solve problems in an efficient manner. That's what you need to understand about data structure. It gives you an idea on how to solve. So the word itself tells you on how to data structure manages data in structures. Okay, so you can't say, for example, you take an example that everyday problems you're dealing. So take the Zoom meeting for example. There are like 10-15 participants right now. So all these participants are throwing away numerous data. I'm throwing away the data in audio and video. Okay, so every bit of data is received at the user end, right? So all this data had to be managed in a particular fashion that it receives to the users, the other participants in a proper manner. So you need to have a proper data structure which allows you to pass this data, this audio and video data, to be streamed across all the participants, right? So data structure enables the way or creates a structure in which the data can be passed in a efficient manner. Okay, so it doesn't restrict you creating one particular project. It can be as simple as sorting a number. So that you've seen numerous sorting algorithms, right? You use a linked list or a stack or a queue to sort your own algorithms, right? Sort your own given numbers, right? So that is as simple as that. It doesn't have to be one particular project. It can simply solve a problem also. Okay, so that is what I would say about data structure. So data structure gives you an idea on how to approach a programming language in a more efficient manner. Okay, so that is what is about program data structure. So to move back to start programming again. So once you start programming, the problems everybody faces, I like to address all the problems everybody faces, because I've seen people face the same problems in a different stage of their careers. Okay, so the next important problems everybody faces once you start learning, the next important thing they would do is you'll start with the data types. You'll go on learning about how to create variables, and the next thing you go move on doing is your if loops, condition loops. So everybody pretty much is okay with creating your condition loops. Okay, if else and switch cases. It is because it is very simple, right? So it is like do this or do that, right? But the next important thing that confuses everybody is the loops. So let's start with for loop, right? So for loop has always been a trouble to everyone. For loop or while loop, right? So to understand how to work on a for loop or while loop, I'll tell you to do something called as walkthrough. Okay, so what is walkthrough? I'll tell you guys what a walkthrough is. Say for example, you have something like this: for int I equals to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. Okay, say you have a code something like this, and you write something like this in between. Okay, I equal to I plus plus. Okay. So you write something like this. So what trying to tell you is, so what a walkthrough will be like, you write it. Again, I will like try to tell you is go and write it. Open your notebook, start writing it. For iteration 0, what will happen is, for iteration 1, I value will be 0. Then when it goes inside, the I value will get incremented by 1, right? So on iteration, on the next iteration, the I value will get again incremented. So it will go on till I value becomes 4, right? So when I change this to, when I do like this, it will go on till the I value is 5. So what will be the I value? How many number of times the loop will have been run? Okay, so that's the question here, right? So it will be like, it will actually be divided by 2. So it will, yeah, if it is 6, it will be only by 3 times because I'm incrementing twice. So once the increment will happen here, and then the increment will also happen here. So if it is 6, say for example something is like this. Okay, so what happens here is, so if the loop is goes on to run 6 times, so now the loop will only be running by 3 times because I am changing the I value every time the loop I value comes inside. So to understand this, what I would like to do, you ask you to do is, go on, take a notebook, say iteration 1. In iteration 1, I value will be iteration 1. Iteration 1, the I value will be 0. Then once it goes inside loop, I value will be incremented. I value will become 1. On incrementation process, I value will again become 2, right? So this will go on to happen for 6 times, but the loop will only be running 3 times, right? So this is what you'll understand. But the loop should have actually run for 6 times, right? So once you manipulate the variables which are involved in the loop, the idea of changing the loop changes drastically. So that's what you need to understand about loops. Okay. So this is one problem I've seen everybody face. Okay. So try to always do something called as walkthrough. What happens at the start of the loop, what happens during inside the loop, and what happens at the incrementation process. How the variable changes, what are all the involved variables, and what is the output at each particular iteration. Okay, so this is one particular problem I have seen everybody face. Okay, so that is as far as loop is concerned. Okay, so I think we have gone for 40 minutes almost now. So, do you guys have any questions? I want you guys to ask questions. Any more questions? I think most of you guys would have all started programming and got stuck somewhere, right? So, I want to, like, guys like 1+5. I don't know your name, man. Sorry. So, guys like that, I want you guys to ask more questions to me. So, wherever you got stuck, I will give you simple tips or idea on where and how you can make it better to start programming. Okay, to overcome the burden, overcome the hurdle, for example. Okay, so this is one particular thing I've seen in everybody do it. Okay, the other important concepts are like say for example function iterations, recursion functions or pointers. These are all concepts I have seen people troubled with. Okay, so if you guys have any particular topic which you want me to tell you guys to how to overcome it, I'll tell you how to overcome it. Okay, so if you guys want me to tell you something, just post the questions in the chat group. I'll tell you guys. The next important thing I would like to talk to you about is how to start to, so you have a piece of pseudocode. Okay, so now you have to convert this piece of pseudocode into an actual piece of code. Okay, so now what you do is you start coding. So once you write a hello. So once you have a pseudocode, what you can do is you can convert it into a code in any language you feel fit. Okay, it doesn't have to be C or Python or Java or JavaScript or any other language. Okay, it doesn't necessarily, pseudocode gives you that advantage. It gives you an idea on how to write a code in any language. It just forms the logic of your problem solving alone. It just solves the problem. It just fixes the logic. That's all. It doesn't involve any syntax at all. That is what your pseudocode gives you. So So once your pseudocode is ready, convert it into your actual code. So pick a language. Once you pick a language, so how to be a problem solver. So the next question that's been asked is how to be a problem solver, how to think logically. That's what I'm trying to tell you here. So uh, say for example, you remember problems like we used to have in sixth and fifth grade maths, right? Say for example, this guy had 5 apples, this guy had 6 apples, or 6 oranges. So how would you divide it equally? So those problems are your key. Okay, you already know it. You already know how to fix it. You have already covered all those basics before. Okay, so now what you can do is you can go on and make sure that it gives you an idea on how to fix it in a code. Okay, so that's where pseudocode comes in. Okay, pseudocode gives you an idea on how to fix it in a way that a code will be running. Okay, so say for example, let's take this as an example. Okay, so you have as I already told you, given a 3 different variables, so you find out which is greater. So what you do is you compare the first two, then compare the first with the next two, then you do is compare the second with the third, and then you find out which is the greater, right? So this is simple logic. So you don't need to actually know how to fix it in the program. Okay, you have to know that how would you fix it if it is asked to you directly. So think of it like that. Okay, so you don't need to immediately start thinking on how I'm going to write it as a program. No, don't start it. Start off your mind thinking like that. No, don't do that. So how you can do is, so you can open your mind saying that I want to fix this particular problem. Say for example, I have 5 different numbers. I want to sort it in ascending order. So what you will do is you pick the first number, then compare with the second number, first with the third, first with the fourth, and go on, right? So that, and then you rearrange the numbers, right? That is essentially what you have to write it as a code. So first I'll fix the first number, then compare it with the second, then I'll compare it with the third until the end. So write it as step-by-step procedures. Think of it like teaching a baby. Computer doesn't, as much as computer can do anything possible right now, it can think on its own. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, everything is possible right now. But everything is possible only because you have to feed the computer step-by-step procedures. Okay, so what you do is before opening your laptops or computers, go on and take a notebook and start writing a pseudocode in step-by-step procedures. Step one, pick the first variable. The step two, compare the first variable with the second variable. Step three, compare first variable till the last variable n. So you do this, and then once the variable is whenever the variable is greater than the next variable, I'll swap the places. So you write this in a format in which you would understand. Okay. So once you understand it, then once you know the syntax of a program, you can easily compare it with. So you want to see a pseudocode, and then you will understand that okay, this is the place, this particular piece of program, he's been repeating it. I'm repeating this particular 3 steps once, twice, 3 and 4 times, and immediately till the end time, right? So once you find the particular piece of program which is being repeated, okay, the steps which are being repeated, you put it inside a loop. So whenever you feel like you're comparing 2 different variables, you put it inside a loop, sorry, if loop, a conditional loops, right? So whenever you face things which you have written in a pseudocode in a particular fashion which you understand, you can compare it immediately with the syntax which will help you to solve it. Okay, so it doesn't have to be necessarily in one particular programming language. It can be in any programming language. That's what is the advantage when it comes to pseudocode. So pseudocode will be an eye opener for you if you use it efficiently. Okay, so that's what I would answer about how to be a problem solver and how to think logically. Take as much as problems. Someone has, sir, in a way, in what way Python skill for biotechnology students. So Python, when it comes to Python, Python has a various advantages. Okay, so if you take Python, say for example, Java is a platform independent language. You can code it in any language, but you can't still code it for Mac. Okay, so Swift is only for Mac and iPhones. JS is restricted to web client web. Say for example, you have Kotlin. It is so Java is for all platforms, not for Mac, not Mac. So there are restrictions for every programming language. You can't script in particular languages. So when it comes to Python, Python has all these advantages. Okay, you can use it as a script. Uh, you can use it in any platform. You can use it for web development. You can use it for desktop development. You can use it for machine learning. I'll put it as a okay. So machine learning, deep learning. So it gives you an advantage to do anything. Okay. So Python has various fields of applications that you can use it. So I'll just copy into this. Okay. So you can use it all these places. Okay. So whereas when it comes to biotechnology students, you can I assume you use things to communicate between your applications which you have created and your computers, right? So that is essentially what when it comes to IoT does, right? So basically what IoT does. So IoT is Internet of Things. So IoT also uses Python. Okay, it takes the code process which comes from the microprocessor or the microcontroller which is being fitted to your devices, and then converts those results which are coming given from the microcontroller or microprocessors to your system, and then makes an interaction between them, right? So essentially that is what your biotech students would be trying to do, right? So you place a biotech, you place a microcontroller in between your devices and your computer and make sure that it communicates seamlessly. So Python gives you an advantage to do that. Okay, so that's what happens when it comes to your Python. Okay, so Python has a various advantages that you can use. That's why I told you at the start of the meeting that you can go with two languages. If you want to learn the basics right, you want to know the foundations right, you want to learn a bike, start learning the bicycle, and then move on to a motorbike bike. I recommend you to start with C programming language. Okay, so if you want to start with a language which is going to be used widely and has a different field of applications, and it is we want it to easy of use, I'll ask you to start with say for example IoT. Okay, so I mean Python. So that's what this when it comes to Python happens. Okay, so that's what Python does. Okay, so start in Groovy. So I would say that there are a lot of go to Kolkata, solve props in any language of your preference. Any language of your preference. Simple. So no, it isn't like that. That's the thing I'm trying to tell you guys. Okay, it isn't. No, there are different programming languages out there. It is hard for us to learn everything, and there will be ups and downs for each programming language. Yeah, so there will be ups and downs for every programming language. Every time, that's why a new programming language keeps coming up. Okay, every year, minimum 2 to 3 programming languages comes up. Okay, So that's the thing. Every programming language has its own disadvantage. Okay, so you need to understand that it will never change. Okay, so but that doesn't mean you can't understand everything. You can't learn everything, but you can definitely understand every programming language. Okay, so once you understand one particular language thoroughly, okay, so say for example, that's what I told you when I started telling you that you have to be good at one programming language at least. So once you understand the basics perfectly, you can always understand another programming language. Say for example, when I tell you water is sunny in Tamil, you can any non-Tamilian will understand it. Okay, it may take for them to figure it out and keep it in their mind that okay, sunny means water, okay, or pani means water. But you will always know that whenever you see water, you will always know that it is something in Tamil, right, or in Hindi, right? So that is what I'm trying to tell you. So it will be the same in across all programming language. It will never change, but the way it is said or the way it is pronounced might change. Okay, that will happen, but the concept remains the same. Okay, so it is just a matter of fact to understand why or how it is used and where it is used. So once you understand that, any programming language can be learned. So you can understand it. You can understand it quickly. You can learn it also quickly. But for all to do all that, you have to actually make sure that you understand one programming language thoroughly. That's what is must. Okay. So that's what I would tell you guys. So other than programming domain, is there any other domain where we can get into the IT sector? Okay, that's another question. Okay, so other than programming, the things which I all told you here, all based upon the fact that you have a certain logical thinking ability, right? So the thing about logical thinking ability is that you can move into any field. Say, for example, there is another field which is closely related to programming is testing. Okay, so whenever a particular piece of code is developed, a programmer or a developer sends it to the testing team where they test for bugs, where there could be loopholes, right? So whenever when I told you to give as many number of inputs as possible, right? So whenever you start programming, start solving problems, when you want to find out edge case scenarios, I asked you to give as many inputs as possible to find out where you could have missed one particular piece of code which would cause an error or a logical problem, right? So that's what essentially what a tester does. So they think of scenarios where it could cause a problem to the user and try to raise bugs so that the developer can fix it. Okay, so it is closely related. They work in hand, the developers and the testers. So you don't essentially need to have any manual testing knowledge when it comes. I mean, any programming knowledge when it comes to manual testing. But there is something called as automation testing also. So when it comes to automation testing, everything I said here applies. Okay, it doesn't have to be we are going as a developer or anything else. Doesn't matter. Whenever you're trying to learn a programming language, everything we discussed for the past 40, 50 minutes, it just remains the same. It doesn't change the fact that you are going to become an automation tester. Okay, whenever you're doing a programming language, all these concepts apply. Okay, so which is the programming language to learn this nowadays? You start. Okay, Pawan asking the question saying that which is the best programming language to start nowadays? So you're going to start fresh. I would recommend, as I already told you, start fresh, go with two programming languages, either C or Python. If you learn C, you can stick with the basics. I'm old school, okay? I'm simply old school. I am a guy who I would recommend go learn C. Okay, you go break your knee. Only if you learn the cycle and learn the balance of it, you can learn your ride your R15 or your RC 390 or Duke 390. I don't care which bike you learn, or even your Royal Enfield for that matter. Once you learn the balance, it is easy to balance any bike, any two-wheeler. Okay, no matter how many big engines they put inside. Okay, so I would recommend to start with basics C. But most of the none of the no companies is using the C right now, and it is almost going away. So what the alternate I would suggest is Python. Go to Python because Python is easy to learn. So C or Python. So start with C or Python. Okay. So that would be my recommendation. So if you have preference, so if you have already chosen the domain which you're going to work, say for example, I'm going to become a mobile developer. Say for example, I'm going to become a web developer. Then you have already figured it out, right? So you already know what you're going to do. So when it comes to mobile developer, you have to choose whether it's going to be an Android or an iPhone. So if it's iPhone, you're going to learn Swift or Objective C. So if it is Android, you're going to learn Java or Kotlin. Simple as that. When it comes to web development, you're going to learn as many JavaScript frameworks that is available. There are like hundreds of JavaScript frameworks available. You're going to learn it, and then you're going to learn backend. If you're going to go become a backend developer, you're going to learn. If you want latest for web backend will be say for example Node.js and MongoDB. So this will be that mobile Swift iOS. This is for iOS. So this will be a language, basic idea on how to start with any language. Okay. So this will give you an idea on how to do it. Java is always a place to go. If you have any doubts on how and where to start, Java is always a place to start. So Java would eventually help you to do those things. So the next important question: most of the companies don't require Python development. It's not a oops based. What is your opinion on that? Who said this is not oops based? Python is oops based. Python is oops based. Who told you Python isn't? I don't know. But I understand the fact that most of the companies do not prefer Python developers. I understand that. So not prefer in the sense they aren't using it widely. But I'm trying to tell you is that it is a good place to start. That's all. Good place to start. So you can always move on to another programming language. Once you understand the basics, you can always move on to another programming language. That's what I'm going to tell you. So it will be easy for you to start off with. Okay. So Python will be essentially giving you an idea on how to write a programming language simpler. Okay. So it doesn't involve any curly braces or semicolons or your completing syntax C in C out, scanf, printf, system.out.println, and it doesn't do that. It doesn't complicate all those stuff. It just simply simple plain English. So that is why I recommend Python. So it will be easy for you to start. It's a good place to start. That's why I recommend Python. So when you move on to company, choose a domain. Choose choose a domain. Choose a domain in which you want to work, and then learn the programming language. It is necessary to learn for that. Okay. So that's what I would tell you guys. So essentially, that is what this answer to your question. Most companies do not prefer. What are the domains out there? Like I told you guys before, there is if you see this particular, there is desktop development. There is for Mac and Windows. Des desktop dev, then mobile dev, then mobile dev. So these are all. So web developers are like. So basically, this is what you give you an idea on uh, what are all the programming languages that is out there. There are numerous other places where you can code also. You can be an automation developer, automation tester. Automation testing is also a place where you can start to code. Sorry. So there is desktop development, mobile development, web development, automation testing. All these are available for you guys to domains to choose from. Okay. So these are all the basic idea we can go on. So I think we are at the end of the session. So if you guys have any other questions, you can start asking how any programming languages help us in interview. Uh, you need to understand that the thing which I already told you. So Ashwini here. So the thing is, it doesn't have to be one particular programming language. So once you understand the logic of it and you write it in a proper way that it solves the problem which the interviewer gives you, the language doesn't matter. But if you are going for one particular piece of place where you are fixing it, uh, fixing a domain, then you need to understand that this particular domain will require this particular piece of code. That's what I'm trying to be explaining for now. Okay, how? And I actually don't understand your question. Be more specific. Can you elaborate? I don't understand it. I didn't get your question clearly. So that is another thing. So I think at the end of the session, guys, if you guys have any other questions, you can start asking. So that you can finish the session. Okay. Okay, so the question asked by Hashni is, okay, say for example, you're telling me to learn C, so how will it help me in an interview? So basically, interview will be consisting of programming rounds. Okay, if you're applying to become a developer, what will happen is they will ask you to solve problems. They will give you 4 or 5 problems for you to solve in a language of your preference. They will ask you to choose your own language and solve it in it. They don't, no, not many companies specifically tell you to fix in one particular language unless you interview for one specific domain. Okay, so it doesn't matter that you have to learn multiple programming language. So you say for example, if you learn C and you can solve a problem, any given problem for you in interview to solve it and fix it in C, that's all. That's how we can crack an interview. So does that answer your question? So any other question, guys? Okay, so I'll always tell you guys, just a minute. Okay, so I'll always tell you guys to start with pseudocode. I can go back from start and check again. Start with one programming language. I would recommend C or Python. The second thing is you don't need to start opening your laptop and start coding it right away. Okay, then always start from the basics. Okay, go on, open your notebook, start writing pseudocodes. Pseudocodes will always help you. Write a pseudocode to fix a problem. Okay, so once you get the idea or the logic of how to fix a problem, you can always convert it to any programming language you feel like converting it to. Okay, so it is as simple as that. Okay, so that will be the second thing. The third will be once you move on from this pseudocode, we can I was giving a private message. What I told on the voice, that is what I said it out loud. So So that's all what it was. So guys, you can see my screen share, right? So that so guys have any other question? Yogesh, just one more question, Yogesh. Just I'll answer that also. Okay.
Sure, bro. No problem.
What is the difference between MATLAB versus IoT? Okay. IoT essentially communicates between uh, uh, a microcontroller, communicates using a microcontroller or microchip, microprocessor. Okay. So there is a communication link between the system and the program which you are giving and the process which is being done by the actual hardware. Okay. Whereas MATLAB will be like MATLAB will give you the idea of how hardware should work, what all changes you can make in the hardware to make work it functionally. Okay. I don't have much of experience in MATLAB, so I can't answer it very effectively. But IoT works like this. IoT gives instructions to the microcontroller to make the hardware work. Okay. So these microcontroller microchips can be controlled using a Python program which you write it in your code and control it from a cloud server or your piece of code which you have it in your system. Okay, that's the difference between a MATLAB and a IoT. Okay, if guys, if your question is answered, just type it is answered. Okay, or thank you, something like that. Okay, so if did it answer your question? Okay, so that's all. Yogesh.
Yeah, thank you, Praveen. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. So hope
Yeah.
all the audience would have been benefited. Guys, if you want to thank him, you can please unmute yourself and you can share your video and say thanks to Mr. Praveen if you want. Or otherwise, we'll do log off. Yeah, we'll have wait for 30 seconds and then we can wind up.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you. I think you guys got what I understood stuff. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask.